All right, now, everybody. Quiet, listen to me. We're going to start a show. Now, some of you people have been with me before. You know it's going to be a tough grind. But we're going to have a show.
What up, party people? It is a Monday following a brutal Niners game. We will talk all about it. So great to have you into the mix. This is my home that my mom and dad live in Washington, D.C. It's the home I grew up in, which is its own weirdness I'll describe in a second. My dad is, as you know, enduring some real choppy water right now, and so I'm back here to be with him and the family, and we will still do shows for you. And I was just telling the guys, as long as I can try to keep it together, I'll be here every day. I plan to go back to California tomorrow, but I may stay on, so we'll make that decision later. But anyway, welcome. We've got a really cool show. Mondays we do Mark's Murder Mystery Monday. Courtney will be along with another murder mystery for you. Kim is here. Kim, how are you?
Hi.
And Albert is here. He is the commissioner, all things sports and Niners. So we'll get into a conversation with Albert as well. Albert, are you prepared to take on the mantle of responsibility?
Yep, I will defend our coach who should have thrown a red flag. But...
Yeah, I mean, you're not kidding. All right. Well, welcome, everyone. Great to have you here. By the way, those who joined the chat early, always love seeing familiar names in the community that is part of this show. One of the great things about this platform really is this community that forms. You don't have that on the radio. You know, I love radio. Yeah, big shout out to everybody who joined and supports this show. And just again, in 30 seconds or less on the radio, which is what I grew up doing. And I've been in radio all my career, even as I was doing television. And I love radio. You realize something, and you don't realize it until you come here to this platform, that there's a one-way aspect to radio. We don't see you coming back at us unless you text us. And more to the point, your ability to see other people in the chat on YouTube distinguishes this as a community of people who actually get to know each other. Yeah. And so it's fun to get to know all of you as you get to know each other. And this is, I think, what makes this, among other things, this thing makes it a special experience. So
I think if I went back to talk radio somehow, if there was a in the Bay Area, if there even was a station that I could work for, I would want to try to bring that with me. That this is part of it that I would love to have had at Station X. And so I think if I ever did it again, I would try to say, let's not have just a text line, let's have a chat line. It's cool.
I think that's actually a cool idea. There may be some technology like that where you have a chat room going, but to have it linked seamlessly to this platform is kind of cool. So I mentioned in Mark's Murder Mystery Monday, I will talk about some of the protest around police brutality and racism in certain aspects of policing. We will get to that. That was a big story, obviously, toward the end of last week. On Friday night, that video was released that was so very disturbing. I couldn't even watch the entire video. I mean, but again, I'll put that to the side for a moment. There's also a bizarre contesting of the will in the Presley estate. Isn't this right, Kim? Just to give us 10 seconds on it, and we'll talk about it.
What? It's so weird. Yes. This is a story where the will came out just a week after Lisa Marie Presley was laid to rest. And her mom, Priscilla, is now contesting the will, saying, that signature doesn't look like my daughter's. I don't think this is for real.
I don't mean to laugh, but I mean, it's just, that is the...
It's a fake will. I don't think that's right.
Well, we'll have more on that. As I say, Kim will get into that.
My bad. I'm sorry.
By the way, it takes Priscilla out of the will. So,
Right. That's the reason Priscilla's contesting it.
right.
Yeah. If Priscilla was getting I didn't even realize Priscilla.
Wild idea, but it just might work.
It might work. It might work. I didn't realize she needed money, but I guess we all need money. It's hard out there for a Presley.
I
So-
guess so.
Look, let's get it out of the way. It was heartbreaking.
The Mark Thompson Show.
It was borderline depressing, the Niners yesterday. Let's take it, Commissioner, if we could, from the beginning of the game. To me, I mean, obviously that's a fearsome defense that the Eagles have, and it's also a dangerous offense. But I thought we were handling the offense pretty well, actually. I thought our defense really showed up. And then
we were doing the thing we were normally doing. Like, it's not the best positions. It's not the best situation. Like, we were going through a lot in the first quarter. Despite the injury and despite whatever was going on, it was still a 7-0 game. And it was kind of over before it even started. I know we were talking last week. It'll be up to the quarterbacks, and it actually did. It was up to both of the quarterbacks, which Jalen Hurts didn't have to do much because we just didn't have a quarterback back there.
Well, and this is what you're talking about. And what you're seeing on screen, if you're watching on YouTube, is you're seeing the injury to Purdy. Now, what I was going to get to before you even get to the injury to Purdy, although you'll help me with the timeline, it was such a it was almost like those biblical plagues, like with just one hits after another. Oh, you're not a believer. Here you go. Let me hit you with this. Now I'm going to hit you with this. Now I'm going to take out your quarterback. Now I'm going to take out your fill-in quarterback. Now I'm going to hit you with a penalty that's not legit. Now I'm going to give them a touchdown.
Now Nick Bosa's going to get tripped up on the sideline and get injured. Fred Warner's going to be a little injured at some point.
Key injuries on offense and defense, and to me, a coaching error of a massive proportion when you don't challenge the long pass that was incomplete. I didn't see it was incomplete because the TV replay didn't show you it was incomplete, but I did see one thing. I saw the receiver leap to his feet and go like this, huddle up real quick. He's telling you he didn't catch it. What? I'm screaming in the room. I'm jumping up and down. Challenge, challenge, challenge. And yet we didn't challenge, Albert. I thought that was an early turning point in that game.
Yeah, it definitely was, because if you think of the momentum, you think of it's a fourth down, it's a huge play. That'll get the crowd going, it'll get the players going. And it's so early in the game. I don't want to say it lost us a game because there's a lot of factors against that. No quarterback, like you said. The referees, there's like 14 Eagles on the field every play yesterday.
Yeah.
And it was we didn't need that to happen. And this is like the track record of Mike Shanahan is he wins a lot of games, but he never wins the big games. So if you even go back to the 28-3 loss, the historic Super Bowl loss that the Falcons went through, Mike Shanahan was not Mike Kyle Shanahan was the offensive coordinator orchestrating the offense, who scored all those points but couldn't score against a historic Patriots win. And then we blew a couple 10-point leads in the playoffs already. And that's just the big picture, or the big cloud over Kyle Shanahan. He could win a lot of games, but just not the big one. And
well, now let me be fair to Kyle Shanahan, and then we can dump on him again in a second. But let me be fair. First of all, as I say, I mean, that missing that challenge was massive, because you need on the road in Philadelphia, particularly, to take that crowd out of the game. And as Albert says, that would have done it. But he has kept a Super Bowl course going with this team with an unknown quarterback, Mr. Irrelevant, Purdy. You had to surround him with enough weapons. Now, you have to have those weapons, but the acquisition of McCaffrey was huge. And you had enough weapons, both on offense and defense, to minimize the loss of Trey Lance, Garoppolo, and then allow Purdy to excel in that scheme. I'll give Shanahan credit for that. I'll, as an aside, say, and Albert, you can explain this to everybody, the NFL will only let you keep so many quarterbacks. Isn't that right? We couldn't have 4 quarterbacks sitting on the bench. You're not allowed to have that.
No, well, even in the roster construction, it'll be hard to do that. So you have to utilize the practice squad, which is getting really specific. And the practice squad is completely open. Like anybody could sign those quarterbacks. So even if you did have extra quarterbacks, other teams could poach them from you. And it's just hard. You can't even have a roster with 4 quarterbacks. It's just tough because you need players on special teams. You're limited to 53 players.
I think the NFL has to reconsider this, and I think the NFL needs to reconsider a lot of things. I kind of view the NFL the way we view the U.S. government. I love it. I love the United States of America. I love America, but I would open up the hood on a lot of stuff in America. The Electoral College, what areas are states. I'm sitting in a place, Washington, D.C., that should have statehood, but they never will because of politics. The NFL, I love the NFL, but there are a lot of problems with it, and that was one of them. Also, I felt as though don't they do, Albert, that instant review on the incomplete pass at the beginning? But they didn't do it in that case. That was one of the situations in which I felt the officiating let down the game. You know, where poor officiating gets in the way of a good game.
Yeah, and they probably should have looked at it, but they committed to a call so early, and it was like Kyle didn't have enough time to think or make a decision. And I know I was kind of bashing on Kyle, but I do love Kyle Shanahan. I think he's a great coach. I think if you look at the NFL, if we were to let go of Kyle Shanahan, he would be instantly hired. And if that's the case, you probably shouldn't fire the coach, because in the NFL, everybody's desperate for wins, desperate to make it to the playoffs, and we're so close, but you can't. We literally need a quarterback. So it's just
it's a quarterback league. Associate producer of this program, Calvin Wong, says the replay referee didn't do his job either. Yeah, certainly on that play. Absolutely, this expedited review, which normally is in place, for whatever reason, got into the outfield on what was a critical 4th down play. Pretty, but as I say, referees are going to blow calls. It's going to happen. That's why there are challenges. And why you hang on to the challenge flag when there is that critical play and it is in the first half, so you're losing a timeout, and who cares? It's in the first half. Didn't make any sense to me. So that is on Kyle Shanahan.
And then the rest of the game, you just felt like it was like not a normal uphill battle. It was like you had to beat the Eagles and you had to beat the refs at the same time, because we tied the game and the Eagles were driving, and the referees had extended the drive 3 or 4 times.
You're talking the
flags,
Eagles were driving, yes.
Flags, really
right.
ticky-tack calls. A couple of them were real, but the others were just gifts, 1st down gifts, and then they scored, and then the fumble, and then it was getting really, it was really bad.
This on John Watson's comment in the chat room. You can text in the chat. One thing I think Shanahan needs to do is figure out how to protect the quarterback more. So let me speak to that. Commissioner, you will give me that trying to block Riddick with a tight end one-on-one, which is essentially what was happening, right? I mean, this guy's isn't he the NFL sack leader or number 2 in sacks in the NFL? And
he's one of the prolific sack getters in the league. And our tight ends are pretty good at blocking, but it's just not their job. They have more to do. So,
I mean, that really was the thing that knocked Purdy out of the game. So you can draw a direct line between that and Purdy's removal from the game. And then Josh Johnson comes in, as you say, he's this guy who's been kicked around the league. And until, 2 delay of games and a fumbled snap that hit him in the hands, I mean, I just felt as though it was too big a task. And of course, ultimately it didn't matter. Although I didn't think he did badly. I actually thought, well, we might actually be able to make it, as I say. And then once he went down, I mean, it's just, that's what
it's like the final 4 teams in the playoffs, the 4 best quarterbacks essentially in the league that are still in it. And you think Josh Johnson's going to lead a win against a dynamic team like the Eagles? It's hard to put we were trying to convince ourselves Mr. Irrelevant could do it, and he was proving he could do it.
I still think Purdy was the better quarterback in that game. And now here's why I tell you this. I really believe, and this is somewhat controversial. I mean, you're going to say, "Oh, Mark, you're just a homer for the Niners," and maybe that's true, But hear me out. Jalen Hurts was not playing like Jalen Hurts at 100%. he wasn't playing like he was at the beginning of the season. He wasn't like Jalen Hurts was injured, okay? And there's no question about it. Look at his stats on the day. I mean, I think he had
like 15
what,
completions, like for like barely 150 yards.
And one of those completions, some of that yardage was on a ball that wasn't even caught. It was ruled a completion, but it wasn't. It was like a 60-yard pass. It didn't even exist. So I thought that the healthy Brock Purdy, which is what he was before he was knocked out of the game, was actually, even though he doesn't have the shimmer, he doesn't have the gloss. And honestly, if both are 100%, he's not as good as Jalen Hurts. Given the diminished nature of Jalen Hurts, I actually thought Purdy could run with him. They could, but to your point, Albert, and then I'll let you speak. I felt as though they're four of the best teams in football. They're going to be two terrific games, and had we not seen the long arm of fate enter our game with help from the officials. And by the way, crappy officiating in both games. The AFC game was awfully officiated. I can give you examples of that as well. The Bengals, to me, were robbed. And I'm not a Bengals fan. If you're going to call roughing in one case, you have to call roughing in the other case, But I felt as though we were cheated of those two great showdowns. In the case of the Niners, by fate and a little bit of the officials. And in the case of the late game, the Chiefs-Bengals game, it was the officials, to me, that cheated us out of a fair contest. That game should have gone to overtime, and I don't know who was going to win.
I'm surprised it didn't go to overtime. I felt like the NFL would want to kind of like milk the momentum of a pretty good game up to the point, but I think comparing the games to last season, it was just such a great playoffs, even though that we also ended up short there. It's just this season in general has felt very not as enjoyable. I don't know, maybe it's all the injuries that's beating me down for the Niners, but this year has been kind of weird, and I just want to see what we're going to do next year. I think we're going to Jimmy, thank you for your service again, and then we're going to have Brock Purdy and Trey Lance kind of had the quarterback competition on paper, but I think this is actually Brock Purdy's job.
Well,
can I ask a question?
Yes, please. McAllister.
What was up with this fight?
The number 42 would not let go of Deebo Samuel, and it was like a scrum. And obviously, we're all frustrated, but all he had to do was let go. He was holding on to him for a pretty long time, and Trent Williams took matters into his own hands. He's an all-pro left tackle that we have, and probably one of the biggest, scariest guys in the NFL. you see, after that clip happened, everybody's backing away from him.
Okay,
so that was our only win last night.
I'm seeing this. These are tweets in defense of Shanahan. I'm not hearing any Kyle Shanahan loses the big game nonsense. You can't play with no quarterback. Brock was clearly hurt, and Josh Johnson was concussed. The defense had way too many penalties. It wasn't Kyle. He's coach of the year, in my view.
No, I agree. So, but the big game situation is that one instant of not throwing the challenge flag, and
I agree. I agree.
That happened in a big game, and I'm not saying that he can't coach the rest of the game. It's just those pivotal moments, those Jimmy G throwing an interception, or the play calls after having a 10-point lead against the Chiefs, where we kind of just hope that the Chiefs didn't score, didn't work out. So I think that's what we're pointing out too.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think that was a game-changing moment, the challenge, and that's clearly at the feet of the head coach. Your thoughts? Welcome. We can revisit it. Look, it's tough. We're Niners fans, and this was a tough loss for us. And let me just say, it was tough because we felt as though we had the team, but to see them go down to injury, and it was like just one page after another. It was, as I say, it was some kind of biblical plague, 1 minute after anher. And at some point,
you're like telling yourself, of course that happens. Yeah. Of course, this happens right after. And this season did seem like a storybook season. We were going into the season with a new car, a new toy. We had the new quarterback, and then he gets injured, and we bring in the guy we're trying to outcast. This good-looking guy who's been beaten down by injuries. He comes back in, with no looking at the playbook, has to expedite his preparation to help us out. Then we need him the most. He gets injured, and then we trade for a all-pro running back to retool. So he's the new guy in town, and then Jimmy gets injured, and then we have the literal last draft pick to take over the team to try to win us this season. And it seems storybook, but it wasn't a happy ending.
I'll say one last thing, as long as we're talking about it. I mentioned that, opening the hood up on the NFL as an NFL fan, and you can't expect teams to maintain the same roster size they've always had and still extend the season the way you've done. You've added these games so much more in the way of physical damage to the players that are playing football. Now, I know NFL, you don't really care about what happens. I know you do a lot of stuff when it comes to concussion, but the reality is this is a sport that, and we saw it literally this season, you can die on any play. I mean, there is a breadth of violence that's permitted on the field that's insanely broad. Yeah. That said, when you watch football, you see that these guys are being brutalized week after week, and you add the number of weeks of brutalization, if that's a word. And so the notion somehow that you maintain this slim roster, look at the guys who are making the Super Bowl. Mahomes is hurt, okay? Jalen Hurts is hurt. You're not getting the best because there's no time for guys to heal up. I think you have to change certain things in the structure of the rosters, and particularly as it relates to this super long season in the NFL.
Yeah, as long as they add more games, you have to compensate. It makes no sense. Like they're getting faster, they're getting stronger, they're getting bigger. We're not slowing down anytime soon, and they should be doing something about it. But you know what they say, Mark. It's the playoffs, so you just got to play through it. It's what happens. It's just a classic NFL. But it's really robbing us from entertainment, I feel like, because we're not getting what we should. We're just getting it on paper, but when we're watching the games, it's not what we think it's going to be.
What the commissioner's saying is exactly right. You're not getting. It's not that you won't get a game. You'll get it, but you could get a terrific game with players at 100%. I mean, to see Jalen Hurts electrify. This is a guy, and by the way, the Niners handled, I thought, the run-pass option very well, and that's why I was so impressed with the defense early on. I know we fell behind, but we fell behind in a bogus play that wasn't even, but let's give them that play. I still thought the defense was playing very well and handling the Eagles' offense quite effectively. Look, that was a fourth down play, that illegitimate long pass. So they were forcing them into a couple of pretty tough spots.
We got them to fourth down a couple of times, and they just, had the cojones to just go for it every single time, and knowing that we just couldn't stop it. And the NFL does need to change that, pushing the quarterback in. I think the teams have been doing it a little too much. I think we're going to see a change there. Well,
it's funny you say that, Commissioner, because I will tell you this. The Niners are really good at that. I mean, I think they're one of the best teams in football at pushing the quarterback ahead.
Yeah,
you agree?
I agree, but I think it's what can you do as a defense? They're just pushing. You have a quarterback, and you just have some big guys behind him pushing him across the first down line.
This is a great comment. I don't know if you put it up there already, Kim. I know you've been putting some comments up, but Mark, it's like a game of Survivor. Whoever's healthy in the end gets to play in the playoffs. It's really true. On some level, there's a lot of truth to that. Go ahead, Kim.
No, I have a question and a comment. First of all, that injury that Purdy received with the arm going back like that, they think it's a UCL injury, and that requires Tommy John surgery, if that's the case. And that's going to be, that means he's out for a while. UCL is ulnar collateral ligament. If it's a complete tear, he'd be facing Tommy John surgery and months-long recovery. So I guess the question is, a guy like Purdy, who is now hurt, but who has done so much this season and kind of given so much hope to 49ers fans, is he the guy next season, or who's the quarterback next season? Is it somebody completely new that we've never seen before? Are all these injured guys now kicked to the curb? What happens?
Well, it's gonna be Brock Purdy or Trey Lance. Well, Tommy John is a very I don't want to say it's prevalent. It's a frequent injury for a lot of pitchers in baseball, and end up coming back throwing harder and more confident. So, and the healing process is actually getting quicker. Like it's not a year, it's more 9 months. It depends on the situation. And well, hopefully he could be back in time. But then him and Trey Lance will probably duke it out next season because we have not a lot of money invested in the quarterbacks, and they're both on rookie deals, which is a good thing. But we'll probably run with those two and probably a journeyman practice squad third quarterback. Just hoping that we don't have to like play the same dance of figuring out who our third and fourth quarterback is next season.
There's never been anything like this.
Well, I think that the question ultimately becomes, just in general, Niners fans and to football fans generally, if you look at the teams that make it to the Super Bowl, they are all quarterback-centric teams. You need the defense, and I think the Chiefs' defense, for example, is much better. It's sort of much better than is advertised because Mahomes is sort of the star of that team, and so the defense is maybe overlooked, or some of their defensive assets. But if you look at the Bengals, also a great defense. I mean, really great defense too. Maybe with a couple more holes in the secondary. But anyway, it was Burrow who gets all the talk, Joe Burrow. So you've got Patrick Mahomes, Burrow. Those are the quarterbacks. It's a league of the Jalen Hurtses of the world, and even Garoppolo had his own shimmer to him, And then Purdy, of course, was the great Cinderella story. But when I talk about the league and quarterbacks and coming back from Tommy John and next season, one of those guys, and I think Albert's right, it'll start as Purdy, and then we'll see how it shakes out. We'll have to step up and be the standout performer. But we don't have a marquee quarterback in either one, although Lance was scheduled to be the marquee quarterback. I don't know if he has got the stuff or not. Now I think the jury's out.
I love this text from Karen D. Did you see Steve Young's tweet? She writes, he said he's ready to suit up. He's waiting in the parking lot.
Steve Young actually had the style of play that's very much the style of play now. Mobile quarterback, able to gain yards on the ground, can take advantage of a defense that leaves him an opening, and can also just heave the ball. I mean, tremendous passer as well. Don't you think, Commissioner?
Yeah, and he was awkward for the secondaries. He was a lefty, so you see him running out there. It's not your conventional, you're used to a right-handed quarterback. Yeah. But unfortunately, we remember how his career ended. I don't think he would survive a couple plays in this NFL.
No, we would.
I'm sure the NFL disabilities sector wouldn't be happy with him.
Yeah, Steve Young couldn't run the length of the field without probably ending up in the ER. You know what I mean? There was something would be blew out his knee, whatever.
But his runs were electric. I always remember that run where he just was scrambling through a whole defense, and he's literally about to fall over before he gets into the end zone, and he finally makes it in.
Well, I'm going to adjourn this court of football unless I see anything in the chat that demands immediate attention. Does San Francisco go after Aaron Rodgers or Tom Brady? Both are from Northern California. This is actually, while they're older quarterbacks, not a unreasonable question to ask. Rodgers is probably the more viable choice, might be the way to put it. Although Brady, I've got to give Brady some credit for being durable. I mean, he didn't get it. Now, he was not so great in that last playoff game, but
yeah, but he didn't have anything really around him, and this is the first time we've even ever seen Brady with no supporting cast, and it was it was sad. That was the word I thought of when I saw Brady. It was sad, and it'll be nice to have either of those, but there's been rumors about both of them going to our teams. Well, Aaron Rodgers since the draft in 2005, and then last season there were some murmurs, and then Brady obviously would be a great landing point for him. If he's looking at it on paper, he's like, wow, this is a great defense. He has a good running back. We have great wide receivers. Let me just go in there and mercenary my way for another Super Bowl.
Yeah, it's true. Somebody said, was it Karen who said no more old dudes?
Yeah, no more old dudes.
Well, as someone who's a perennial defender of all old dudes, and I mean dudes and dudettes, I'm a big love my old people.
If we had a room of Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, and Jimmy Garoppolo, that'll get somebody tweeted or somebody texted it or chatted in that Jimmy G is the reason why the wives are watching now. Well, imagine that
Joe Box
room.
Yeah,
imagine that quarterback room with that three-headed monster. That'll be insane.
That's very funny. Just the rotating.
He's not wrong.
Yeah, rotating handsome. Yeah.
Yeah, we're just
Rotating.
actually having the Bachelor to decide the quarterback.
All right, I'll tell you what we're going to do. We're going to adjourn the court of Monday morning quarterbacking, but you're all still welcome to throw in on it. I mean, those are some thoughts on a game that was heartbreaking, mostly because I felt we didn't really get a chance to ever really play, you know. And when we were playing, which was very early on, I thought we played well. And then the hand of fate. So, but when we come back after Kim's news, we will talk murder mystery. And Courtney will join. It is Mark's Murder Mystery Monday. And before we get there, I'll remind you to smash that like button like a boss. It costs you nothing.
Smashed it with your iron rod.
Smashed it like a boss. Give me a thumbs up. Kim's news next as we continue. Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
On the Mark Thompson Show, I'm Kim McAllister. This report sponsored by tax attorney Steve Moskowitz at 888 Tax Deal. And let's get right to it because House Speaker Kevin McCarthy is optimistic about his upcoming meeting with President Biden to discuss the debt ceiling. Appearing on the CBS Face the Nation program, the California Republican said Biden's staff tries to say something different, but he's confident the pair will come to an agreement on the issue. McCarthy also revealed he plans to meet with the president Wednesday. This comes after the administration's previous claims they would not negotiate with House GOP members as they look to impose spending cuts. Former President Trump once again taking aim at Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. Here they both are. Yeah, I don't think they like each other anymore. So DeSantis is, he's taking aim, Trump is, as he's hitting the campaign trail. Speaking with reporters aboard his plane on Saturday, Trump called the yet unconfirmed presidential run by his GOP rival very disloyal. He also claimed DeSantis is trying to rewrite history regarding his administration's response to the pandemic and that he's changed his tune a lot concerning vaccines. Once a loyal supporter after Trump endorsed DeSantis for governor back in 2018, the pair have become increasingly at odds, you could say, as their rivalry grows. The former president's comments come as he visits New Hampshire and South Carolina during his first major campaign swing. There is a GoFundMe now set up for the Tyre Nichols family. It's now surpassed $1 million. More than 28,000 donors. This account created just days ago by Nichols' mother with a goal of $1.2 million. Nichols is a 29-year-old black man fatally beaten by 5 police officers in Memphis, Tennessee earlier this month. The officers, who are also black, were later fired, charged with the connection to his death. Video of the beating was released late last week, and Nichols is set to be laid to rest on Wednesday. One of parents' biggest fears, their children's mental health. That is according to a new study from the Pew Research Center, which tallied more than 3,700 U.S. parents last year. 40% of respondents said they are extremely or very worried that their kids will struggle with anxiety or depression. 35% felt the same about their kids being bullied. Concerns over drugs or alcohol and getting shot were further down the list at less than 25%. You know who this woman is. She looks familiar to you. She has been in a lot of things, actually. Anne Wersching is her name. She was in television series Bosch, Timeless, 24, you may know her from. She most recently appeared in the 2nd season of Star Trek Picard as the Borg Queen. Here she is in that role. Well, she passed away. Anne Wersching did. She was 45 years old. She was diagnosed with cancer 3 years ago. Did not survive it. She leaves behind her husband, actor and comedian Stephen Full, and 3 young sons. Yeah,
I'm
sad
telling you,
situation
we
there.
bathe in these carcinogens every day. They're in everything, these
Yeah.
plastics and this crap, man. It's just unbelievable. It's in our, I just see these beautiful young people passing away from cancer. It's and beautiful old people passing away from cancer. It's despicable that we allow these environmental toxins into our world with the in the tonnage that we permit it. I'm sorry, you know, it's a major cause of mine, and and I'm so
45.
sad for when I
Yeah.
see these kinds of things.
What hits me about this is she's got 3 little boys, ages I think 4 through 9. And so I just think about those sons and her, being a young mom. So
And last thing, I mean, she's one of many others. I mean, many, 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 many others who are not as famous and not as beautiful. And it's just
yeah,
so it's reflective, sadly, of what is an epidemic, and that is these cancers that are brought on by the carcinogen-rich environment that we have to swim through every damn day.
yeah, we do. As Mark was mentioning, the 49ers lost. Philadelphia Eagles will be going to the Super Bowl. Top seed in the NFC blew out the 49ers 31-7 to win that NFC championship game at Lincoln Field. Eagles linebacker Hassan Reddick pushed 49ers quarterback Brock Purdy right out of the NFC Championship game. He returned after a backup quarterback, Josh Johnson, sustained a head injury, but it just wasn't to be. The Eagles will face the winner of the AFC Championship game between the Kansas City Chiefs and the Cincinnati Bengals. Do we know who that is? That was the Chiefs, right?
Yep, that was the Chiefs.
That was the Chiefs. That will be Super Bowl 57 at State Farm Stadium in Glendale, rather. Okay, so here's an interesting story. A review is underway by the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences into its Oscar campaign policies. The probe comes to light because of the growing influence of social media and the surprising Best Actress nomination of this woman you see here. Her name is Andrea Riseborough for her performance in the very little viewed indie film called To Leslie. The British actress, heavily promoted on social media by some leading Hollywood actors like Kate Winslet, Edward Norton, Gwyneth Paltrow, as some are complaining that a bunch of white actors got together to take away 2 black women's places and hand it over to a well-connected friend. But there's a film critic, Brian Tallarico, who says studios spend small fortunes on parties and events trying to push their nominees and buy their way into the Oscars. He says the fact that Riseborough didn't have to go to all that trouble while the likes of Viola Davis and Danielle Deadwyler did and still missed out is arguably what he says is fueling all this backlash. Interestingly, no one is saying that her performance in To Leslie wasn't amazing. They say they just don't like the way she got the attention. So we'll see how that pans out. This report, sponsored by tax attorney Steve Moskowitz. For more than 30 years, Steve has put his tax knowledge to work for individuals and for businesses. If you need help with your taxes, give Steve a call. He's at 888-TAX-DEAL. You can also reach him online at moskowitzllp.com. I'm Kim McAllister on The Mark Thompson Show.
Feel it in your soul. The Mark Thompson Show.
Thank you, Shadow Stevens. Thank you, everybody. I'm excited. I was just trying to handle a quick. I'll just say it what I'm thinking rather because I can't type it. But Randy said, "You're making a leap there with your diagnosis, aren't you, Mark?" Randy likes to stir the pot a little bit, which is fine. I don't mind that. I would say this to you, though, Randy, when I'm talking about the cancer in the case of the actress and the fact that tens of thousands of people succumb. I'm talking about young people in their 40s and even younger succumb to cancers as a result of the carcinogenic environment that we've essentially created. You may think that that's a leap. I think the onus is on you to prove me wrong, because the reality is I can give you chapter and verse and have given you chapter and verse on the toxins that have leached into water supply, into the air, and into the soil. I mean, the tonnage of these carcinogenic toxins that we breathe in, that we eat, that we consume. I think the world of many of these lives that we talk about is replete with examples of just what I'm talking about. So I ask you to prove to me that what I say and what I've essentially offered as a problem that has produced increasing cancers in younger and younger people. Explain to me why that doesn't make sense to you. That might be the way I'd put it. All right, now it is Monday. First, I'll ask you to hit the like button as I do. We'll save all requests for money and all the rest till the end of this half hour, right, Albert? So we won't ask for, I'm not going to do a big money pitch about supporting us until the end. We are a crowd-funded show, but I'll get to that in a bit. I will ask you to smash that like button like a boss. Give us a thumbs up for Mondays, which bring Mark's Murder Mystery Monday.
Mark's Murder Monday on the Mark Thompson Show.
It is a Murder Mystery Monday. The murder is a mystery, and the one to tell us the story is the great Courtney, everyone. My other half and the loveliest person on earth. How are you, Courtney?
Hi, how are
Albert, now would be a good time to hit some applause. Thank you. All right. We're working it out, Courtney. You know.
Oh yeah, no,
it's not quite the normal scene.
I mean, to be fair, we've only been doing this for a couple months, so I could understand. It's not.
Courtney was a bit put off, Kim.
Yet.
Courtney was put off by the fact that last week we didn't.
I mean,
what were you dejected about?
Well, Mark, I'll refresh your memory. I had a doctor's appointment that I couldn't move, and it happened to be 10 o'clock on Monday. And so I was unable to do Murder Mystery Monday. And as I know it, the show went on for a good hour and 20 minutes before a fan of the Mark Thompson Show raised their virtual hand and said, "Where is Courtney?" And I'm just saying that if I were to go missing or something were to happen to me, this doesn't engender trust. Okay, Mark? I'm just saying that the irony of this situation is not lost on me.
That's a good point. I mean, here we are in Murder Mystery Monday, oftentimes talking about people who are missing, and then there's obviously a foul play involved. And here she was missing, and we didn't even take note of her being missing for like an hour and 20 minutes. I blame both Albert and Kim for this, really.
What?
It was wrong. It was stupid, and I'm trying to be a better person.
Was not sure that I would want people to know that I had a doctor's appointment, but my better half in my life, who knew that I wasn't going to be on the show, forgot about me. It's okay. It's okay. Clearly,
well, I did tell everyone you once queried. I told everyone you had a doctor's appointment. Now, let's put that ugliness behind us, Courtney, and let's get on to this week.
Oh my God.
We would miss you. Don't worry. If he ends up putting you in a box in the garage, I'm there for you. Like I will stand up and I will question it. Okay.
These are dark times, Courtney. People are doing awful things to each other.
It's
what
the
do you have?
Scenario, because there are a lot of boxes in the garage. It would take a
you'd
very long time.
You'd have a rough time finding it.
Not
and you'd
3
say,
times.
"Well, I'll just follow the smell." Well, there are a lot of smells in the garage, also. So,
would literally be gone for eternity. But no, I'm excited. I'm excited to be here. You
are excited to get started because now might be a good time.
So nice to have such a welcoming back to the show. Yes, and it's interesting doing this remote. So I hope you can hear me, and I hope everything is okay from a connection perspective. I am highlighting a recent story this week that was provided to me by Calvin Wong, who is
our unofficial associate producer.
Yeah, really incredible fan of the Mark Thompson Show, who's been very generous emailing me stories and other information. So I wanted to talk about a story that recently happened in Mexico, and it is the kidnapping and unfortunate death of Jose Gutierrez. So Jose Gutierrez is he's an Ohio architect, and he had left, I think it was Cincinnati, on December 22nd. His brother drove him to the airport. He was flying down to Mexico to visit his fiancée, Daniela. She is also an architect, and so that was the last time anybody saw him. And so he went to dinner with Daniela's cousin and sister, and they were at dinner in Mexico in the area of Zacatecas. And there were screams and panic heard from patrons that were in the restaurant and bar, that the four of these family members and fiance had just visited on the night of December 25th. And the mother of Daniela, her name is Rosa Picard. She was waiting for the four of these people who were celebrating together for the holidays to come home. And she receives a text message from her daughter, whose name is Viviana Marquez. She's the sister of Jose Gutierrez's fiance, Daniela Picardo. So the mother, Rosa, receives a text message saying that they're just outside of town in the city of Tepetongo, which is not where they should be. And so everybody's worried about where they are.
Why are they worried about where they are?
Well, because at this point they're missing after this incident on the 25th. All they know is that the four of these family members and fiance, so that's Jose Gutierrez, Daniela Picard, Vivian Picard, who went by Vivian Marquez, and then the cousin, Irma Vargas. They had gone to dinner for Christmas evening, and they were never seen again. And there was this one text message that was sent to Rosa. So Irma's parents actually go on to Mexican TV and media, and they start to beg for the return. Now, it's widely known that in the area of Zacatecas, there are a lot of kidnappings. There are a lot of gang activities and drug activities. And so I believe that's what they thought had happened. I read an article about Irma's parents begging for the return of the four people who had been kidnapped, but I couldn't find exact information as to how they knew that they were kidnapped. So they went on to television. This is December 30th, December 31st of last year, begging for their return. And it was just last week that the Mexican authorities found the four people deceased in that area of Tepetongo. And the van that they had been driving is what was first recovered. And there was bullet holes all throughout that van. And then the four bodies were buried nearby. And so they were all deceased. And it's just a horrible story. He was this very beloved architect. I think he was a project manager for Chaplin Architecture. And they've actually started a scholarship at the University of Miami, which is his alma mater, to recognize his contributions both to their firm and to the community. And the couple, Jose Gutierrez and Daniela Picardo, they were engaged February of last year and intended to get married in September of this year. So it's just a really, really horrible story about four young lives, taken to.
So this is a drug cartel that they ran into. Is that what happened? I mean, so what were the conclusions as to what led to their murder? Well,
that's the issue, is that there hasn't been anything expressly stated. That's what's thought to have happened, is that they were kidnapped and then murdered. But what I can't find is that there was a note from the kidnappers demanding any certain things from the parents of these four individuals. And then nothing has been expressly said by the Mexican authorities or the FBI who was helping, just that the bodies were recovered. Yeah.
Wow. So this sort of remains a mystery, doesn't it, Courtney?
Yeah, it does.
I mean, it's disturbing.
It's disturbing. Yeah.
Awful mystery. Yeah.
Yeah. It's really so sad. I mean, you can tell how much they loved one another. They were both just starting their careers in the fields of architecture. They were just getting married, and they were out celebrating with her sister, Daniela's sister, and her cousin. And so the family, you know, what a huge loss in that moment. So it's just a very sad story. And I do hope that the justice is served. So there is a GoFundMe for the funeral expenses. And as I mentioned, there is a scholarship that was started by the Chaplin architecture firm in the name of Jose Gutierrez. So his legacy, we can hope, lives on. But yeah, just a really extraordinarily sad story.
My God, it really is. And I just don't,
I know.
unless the authorities come forward with some kind of theory, it's likely that there isn't any kind of independent, you know, PI work or investigative arm to actually discover what happened. You know, it feels as though that part of the world, you know, rife with gunplay and cartel rule, might be hard to cut through and actually get any answers, right?
Exactly. And the homicide rate went up 150% between 2020 and 2021. And there's been alerts given to U.S. citizens about not traveling to Zacatecas, that area, which, to your point, is widely known for kidnapping and drug cartels and gang related activities. But I think that the family lived in the outskirts of that, not necessarily in there. And so that is why Jose was there visiting his fiance and her family. Mm-hmm.
Well, this is a Murder Mystery Monday that concludes with sort of a down, never apprehended kind of result that I'm not happy with, Courtney.
I know. I can't. I know.
Do you have in the future? Can you maybe present stories by which, you know, maybe there for a long time they couldn't find out what happened, then they found what actually happened, and then discovered the perpetrator, and they actually captured them, and they stood trial, and they're, you know, you see what I'm saying? Like that
I know.
A more fulfilling ending.
Yeah, no, I'll work on that, Mark.
I mean, are you leaving me in this place of sadness?
I think
because of the thing last week where we didn't realize that you weren't on until you actually.
Yeah, no.
I feel like this might be a payback.
I'm definitely over that. It's like it never happened. I haven't been thinking about it every day. Not at all.
Ooh, it's a wild idea, but it just might work.
Fine.
I love having you on.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me here.
I'm so saddened.
Thank you for remembering me today. So nice.
So do we have a hint to next week, or are you just going to kind of see where things? Do you have a tease for us, or an upcoming maybe?
I have in the weeks ahead. I have been thinking about covering the Alex murder, but that is, I mean, that could be a whole show because
that's ripped from today's headlines. That would be good.
Yeah, there is a lot of situations and unfortunate events in that man's past that have all come to light. And it's hard to just cover unfortunately, one of the murders that he's tied to. But I thought that maybe Alex Murdaugh and perhaps we have somebody who knows the case, contribute as well.
Okay. Well, if you can get that organized, that'd be great. I mean, I'll tell you, I don't like these murder things particularly. In other words, I don't gravitate toward them. Mm-hmm. Those aren't the articles I read. Those aren't the stories that I'm interested in particularly. But what I'm saying is, whatever
I cover them and read them.
Whatever you tell me about the Murdaugh case, there must be some people like me who don't follow this so closely. It will be interesting and news to me. So I look forward to that. And if you want to bring somebody else in, yeah, we can do that. I mean, somebody else in to do it with you, like for that particular case or any other. That'll be great. So please, you brought Josh Mankiewicz in that one time, and it'll be fun to bring in whomever you feel it would enhance the story.
Who I saw this week, who remembered who I was, and then remembered what time we were getting together. I'll just mention that.
Big shout out.
You don't seem like you're over the thing last week, but all right. Kim, do you have any questions for Courtney before we say goodbye?
No,
No,
I'm always, but
I'm
I'm always fascinated. You say you don't gravitate toward these stories. I kind of, in news, you read just a bit and you never really delve into like all the other interesting things that have happened in the backstory. So I do love Mark's Murder Monday, which should really be Courtney's Murder Mystery Monday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
thank you so much.
You're welcome, Courtney. I'm telling you, I got your back, my friend.
I
But
know.
I love the reports because there's always something I didn't know and didn't realize. So you add a new perspective.
Oh, thank you. That means a lot. Well, I was taken by this story. It's just such a sad loss for this family, and also obviously Jose Gutierrez's family as well. And then of course there's this Alex Murdaugh trial that's going on, and it's just such a soap opera of a situation. And you think, like, I was listening to something last night, and they're, well, the first murder was in 2015, and you're thinking, oh my God, for 8 years this family has just been tied to the loss of life and deception and corruption, and of course they've also been in the legal system I think they're in North or South Carolina for like 100 years. Their family has been part of, I think it's public defense, or they've been part of that legal system. And so it's pretty incredible, this story of what's happening right now. But I did want to highlight this unfortunate story with Jose Gutierrez. So I will think about next week if people have stories that they would like me to cover. There's a couple other stories that I'm also working on, but I welcome feedback, and I welcome
email the show, and we will push them on to Courtney, and then she can contact you directly.
Thank
the show,
you.
of course, is themarkthompsonshow@gmail.com. themarkthompsonshow@gmail.com. Courtney, there it is, themarkthompsonshow@gmail.com. Thank you. I adore you, and I look forward to the next time. That is it for Mark's Murder Mystery Monday.
All right, take
Welcome
care. Thank you.
to Mark's Murder Mystery Monday.
Yes, and goodbye for Mark's Murder Mystery Monday. So
I think the wrong one. Should I hit the correct one?
If you want.
Mark's Murder Monday on the Mark Thompson Show.
Yeah, and that's the old one, Mark's Murder. It's actually Mark's Murder Mystery Monday. That's not your fault, Albert, because I think the wrong file was sent. But of course, you will be blamed. So there's that. Now,
Tony isn't here. Let's just blame Tony.
We can blame Tony.
Love you, Tony.
You can find us at themarkthompsonshow.com. That's where you can email us as well at themarkthompsonshow@gmail.com. People email stories, people email comments. Try to keep your emails succinct, but we always love hearing from you. You can do it there, themarkthompsonshow.com. Now, Albert, what would you like to do? We have a few more minutes, very few moments before Kim's news, top of the hour. But I'm wondering if you feel we should do acknowledgments here, or what should we do?
Yeah, well, we have 2 people who has contributed to today's show. We have 4 total donations, so we could just knock these out real quick. Here's the first one.
Edward Lee for $2, 42 degrees in Bay. Oh, thank you, Edward, for mentioning the temperature, because it's going to be incredibly cold around the Bay Area. Yeah, into the 30s overnight. We'll talk about that in a minute. Edward Lee, $2. Thank you. Mwah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for that. Every little bit helps. It is a crowd-funded show. You're the crowd, and thank you for the funding. Yeah. Andreas is, what can I say? He's one of the guys who's a regular. He's one of the guys who's one of our great supporters. Yeah. And he was in the chat before we came on the air today with this donation of $20. To a great week, Mark. Good luck with your dad. Thank you. I think I'm going to need some good luck. And thank you. Thank you, Andreas. So appreciate you, sir.
Yeah, very much so.
And there's another 20 from Andreas. Mwah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Andreas, I've said it before. You're one of our brightest lights.
And that was the last one. That's the last $20. Andreas, thank you.
Thank you so much, Andreas. What are you going to hit him with? Which?
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That's my favorite. the floor.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. So just again, I'll do it just quickly to remind you, this is a crowd-funded platform. We don't have advertisers apart from Steve Moskowitz, who we talk about all the time. Steve is great. Steve is great both for sponsoring the show, and Steve is great because what he does is great. That is to say, helping people with tax issues across the board. Steve can help you file your taxes, even if you feel your taxes are likely on the simpler side. He can find you ways to save money. Why get slammed when you don't need to? 888-TAX-DEAL, 888-TAX-DEAL. You can see it there on the screen, 888-TAX-DEAL. It'll run throughout Kim's newscast, that banner at the bottom, so you can be reminded, 888-TAX-DEAL, or you can reach him at moskowitzllp.com. I'll talk more about Steve next hour. But apart from Steve, we need you to help support this platform. So again, crowdfunding depends on the crowd. That's why we visit it at times. I've tried to really pull back. I don't know if you've noticed the amount of airtime I spend really asking you for support, but that means you really need to maybe step up without being asked. So many of you have been very generous already, and I'm so grateful. And we scroll and run the names of people who have given any amount, and those who stepped up and given even greater amounts, we put you in bigger font size at the end of the show, just to show you we really do appreciate it. But there it is. You go to themarkthompsonshow.com. The page will look like that if you're watching on YouTube. And you click on one or the other. Contribute to our Patreon, help support via PayPal. So you go to either one. And that's a great way to support us. And in that way, we can keep this show on the air. So I'm in Washington, D.C. My dad's in bad shape right now, hoping that he'll rally. But I'm committed, and I wanted to show you how committed I am. So we brought this kind of portable rig on the road with us. We've got a lot of great content. This week will be great. I've got a Washpo reporter. I've got David K. Johnston. I've got David Katz. I've got Michael Shore, Jim Avila. We've got many of our normal political minds, and we'll get into all of that as the week continues. Thanks for being here. Kim's News next as we continue. Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
On the Mark Thompson Show, I'm Kim McAllister, and this report sponsored by tax attorney Steve Moskowitz. And we'll get into the documents, why don't we? Because here we go again. An equal percentage of Americans are concerned about the classified documents found in the possession of former President Trump and President Biden. This is from a new NBC News poll. It shows 67% of Americans were concerned about both findings. This comes as U.S. Attorney General Merrick Garland appointed special counsels to oversee the investigation of both cases. Sensitive material discovered at both Trump and Biden's private homes, but only forcibly seized from the latter. Classified documents were also discovered at the private home of Vice President Mike Pence. That was on January 24th. That news, though, arrived after this poll was conducted. One congressman says no law can stop the evil that took the life of Tyre Nichols. Jim Jordan appeared on NBC's Meet the Press. He says that the officers responsible for the beating death of Nichols didn't have any respect for human life, and no amount of training can change that. The Ohio Republican went on to say that violence seen in the video of this incident, which was released on Friday, doesn't represent the vast majority of law enforcement. He also urged any police reform should be kept at the state or local level at the risk of federal government. He said, bungling it. Heart attacks are on the rise among young adults. And a recent study is suggesting there might be a link to COVID-19. Heart attacks have been on the rise overall ages since the start of the pandemic, but the youngest age group monitored, those between the ages of 25 and 44, saw the highest increase at nearly 30%. Researchers at the Smith Heart Institute at Cedars-Sinai Medical Center point to several possible explanations, including pre-existing conditions, but they also highlighted external factors such as job loss, financial pressures, social anxiety, and many have experienced as a result of COVID. So as the pandemic winds down, the social implications may have also had something to do with it, not just the disease of COVID itself.
What?
I know. Did that make sense the way I said that? I don't know. I'm sure. Kanye West. Let's get right to this one. He was involved in an incident over the weekend, and he is now the suspect in a battery investigation after allegedly throwing a woman's phone into a California street. The incident first reported Friday in Newbury Park near Los Angeles. Authorities say the rapper approached a woman's car and accused her of following him as she filmed him. The woman reportedly said, "But Kanye, you're a celebrity," before he snatched the phone from her hands and threw it right into the street. It's unclear whether the woman was a professional photographer or just a citizen taking pictures. No arrests have been made. That woman not hurt. The video of the interaction, though, is being reviewed by investigators. And a week after her daughter was laid to rest, Priscilla Presley is contesting the authenticity of the will of her daughter, Lisa Marie Presley. It left Lisa Marie's Riley, yes, as the successor.
What?
It reportedly restructured in 2010, taking Priscilla and the former business manager, Barry Siegel, off of the will. And so, according to the challenge in court, Priscilla says the new will misspells Priscilla's name and it includes a signature that looks inconsistent with her daughter's, she said.
You know, they do this to me all the time. I don't know what the hell they do it for.
Is it a fake will? Is Riley trying to take money away? I don't know.
Well,
Lisa Marie died earlier this month and was laid to rest at Graceland in Memphis. And yes, now comes the contesting of the authenticity of the will.
The business manager to whom you refer, it is suggested, and I believe if it's the same business manager, maybe that's the provider. I just don't remember all the names of the business managers. But remember we did the story about how she died. You know, she had $100 million. And she died owing 16 million, I think the number. And the question was, what happened to all that money? I mean, the Presley estate is one of the wealthiest in the history of music and entertainment. And the answer is that she contended while she was alive that the business manager squandered a lot of the money, put her in bad investments, was a scam artist, etc. So if it's that same business manager, that would explain at least why he's not on there, you know. So,
yeah, well, I think she owns Graceland, doesn't she?
Wow.
And she had, or what she did, and then it was supposed to be turned over to some like museum foundation kind of thing, but I don't know how that's going to work out. And then there's the question of all the royalties from all the Elvis songs, which I think Michael Jackson bought quite a portion of the catalog at some point. I don't know.
Well, in an already twisted, and I say twisted because of the incredible wealth that turned into incredible debt, and the twisted tale of the Presley family, it's sort of a sad coda that now there's a contesting of the will. But there you go.
It just shows that, though, no matter what the family, death in the family and will and money stuff does weird things to people, poor, rich, what have you, and all matters of in between. It can just get really weird, I think, when wills and people start fighting over money. And this report, speaking of money, is sponsored by tax attorney Steve Moskowitz. For more than 30 years, Steve has put his tax knowledge to work for individuals and for businesses. So if you need help with your taxes, please call Steve Moskowitz at 888-TAX-DEAL. He's also at moskowitzllp.com. I'm Kim McAllister on The Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
I think you know what the problem is just as well as I do.
Who's Mark Thompson?
Everything is going extremely well. I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that.
I apologize to every preacher and pastor.
going here is a situation.
We have processes and protocols and standards.
No, no, no.
60% of the time, it works every time.
Woohoo! I love that little riff, Albert. That was really fun. Thank you. It's the Mark Thompson Show. Welcome. It is Monday following a Niners decimating loss. You'll forgive us for referencing it briefly, even as I start the second hour. If you want to hear the whole post-mortem on it, you have to go to the first hour, and Albert and I detailed it all for you.
I just saw this on Twitter. Yeah, it's really funny.
The 49ers' fifth-string quarterback is George Santos. Yeah, good. Hey, speaking of Twitter, did we tweet? I didn't. I forgot. Can you tweet that we're on the air? I have to say, I'm going to tell you something again.
This wild idea, but it just might work.
I come from a broadcast career that started in radio, went to television, always have loved radio, been a radio junkie kid. In this house where I'm sitting right here, I used to listen on these AM radios to distant stations in New York and in Chicago, and they call it DXing, where you've got, and I was just doing it with my little radio. It was a little nothing radio. Back then, the AM signal would bounce at night from all of these places. And anyway, and the television, you know about that. But I'm going to make a point about what we do here in a second. So I'm used to big time radio and big city, grew up in a big city. And I'm also used to big time television, done in big network television shows. I've hosted big network television shows. I've hosted network talk shows, all this stuff. So when I came to YouTube from KGO, it doesn't have, by definition, all of the stuff that KGO has. We have to worry about copyright strikes, and we can't use this certain music, and we can't. I like production elements, and I like everything to feel.
We're still learning.
Big time. Yeah, but it has something else that, and I don't know how it's all going to work, but I can just speak from my heart and tell you that this is very raw. So I'm communicating to you in a very raw way, in a very unvarnished way. So everything I've described to you, the opens, the network news, top of the hour, the hard outs, all those commercials that KGO used to run, and then we come out with music, and there's a momentum and a slickness, almost, if you want to think of it that way, to those kinds of presentations. Now, I think we did a great show, and into that you put great elements and a good crew, which was what we have, and you end up with a really good show, and that's what we have. When you take that crew here, it's this raw, stripped down quality, and in a way, it may be an opportunity. I've never communicated in this raw, stripped down way, where I set up a camera at my mom's house. I used to come to Washington to do the KGO show and to see mom and dad. I used to come back quite frequently because I knew that, this is pre-COVID. They're older people. And I just didn't, we're all on like a limited time, right? Mm-hmm. So I'd come back here, and KGO would let me do the show from Westwood 1, right down the street. Yeah. I would do it over at WMAL. Okay. So, and no one would even know that I wasn't, back in the studio. It doesn't matter, of course, where anybody is, and that's the reality. It's the radio. We're all on the show. We're all on the program. Who cares? We're with you, watching or listening. So anyway, now in this way, it's much more stripped down, much more emotional. Frankly, you can feel and see our frustration. You can feel and see our laughter and enjoyment, and you can feel and see our heartbreak. And so I hope it all works out. So
I have some heartbreak to share.
No.
I just got a message from my son's teacher while you were speaking. Apparently he got sent to the office today for putting a kick me sticker on a classmate.
Wow. And Kim's son is 19. That's the sad part.
What?
Yeah,
No!
He really is. He is really not making any progress.
He's 8.
developmentally. Oh.
I could see the appeal of putting a note that says "kick me" on someone. I think I've done that in the past, but yeah. So
we know where he got it.
That might work.
now we have to have a serious situation.
You may want to leave that out of your serious situation.
I won't. No.
It was wrong, it was stupid, and I'm trying to be a better person.
Yeah, right.
Don't kick other people. Or
Mommy never did this. Don't embarrass our family.
Do you know who I am? I'm kind of a big deal.
Don't bring shame on our family.
My bad. I'm sorry.
Don't humiliate me.
And I wanted to apologize to the Asian community, the Asian American community.
Make sure he does apologize to the Asian American community. This is bullying is not funny. That's true. But Tom makes a funny point, which is that the kick me prank is an old school prank. And Tom says, I'm glad to see the kick me prank is still fresh. Well, I am sorry, Kim.
Yeah, these things happen. Not to him very often.
Major announcement from the Mark Thompson Show.
Oh, there's a major announcement? Oh, this is great. Now, here, let me tell you what happened there. Albert accidentally hit that.
Oh, is that what happened?
And now, Albert,
now
you've got to come up with a major announcement. That is the way. Those are the rules of the show. So you got to figure out something.
The tweet is live. I just made the tweet.
Oh, that's very good. Well done, sir. Well done. So the tweet is live. All right. So if you're on Twitter, the tweet is now up. So congratulations.
I did tease the weather, and I did tease a little more of the will if we want to talk more into that.
I do want to speak about the weather for a moment, because freezing temperatures are expected throughout much of Northern California. And I'm talking about Bay Area temperatures, close to freezing. There are a lot of those warming shelters to protect unhoused people that are going up and opening because of the threat of hypothermia. There will be several inches of fresh powder, they say, up in the Sierra. And they are issuing a freeze warning for most of the inland portions of the Bay Area. So Santa Clara Valley, Santa Cruz Mountains, East Bay Hills, inland East Bay Valleys, So watch for these cold temperatures to continue. Yeah. And it is coming up to San Francisco Beer Week. Did you know that, Albert? I feel like that's something you would be is it on your beer calendar, your drinking calendar?
No, it's not on my beer calendar, but I'm looking into it right now.
Yeah. It's on I believe it's around February 10th.
February 11th, I see here.
Yeah. Okay.
So it is in my calendar, actually. I did see it here.
Well, everybody should stop into the Red Jack in San Francisco. But there are breweries around the Bay Area that are kicking off as well with San Francisco Beer Week events of one sort or another. So ale houses and the Silicon Valley chapter of the Bay Area Brewers Guild is holding a kickoff event on the 10th and the 11th. So I think what can you Google, Albert, to keep track of this? San Francisco Beer Week, right?
Yeah, here, let me just remove this from the picture out of this, and I am sharing my screen. There's a whole calendar here, sfbeerweek.org. And here's how this is
a Beer Week extravaganza. Wow.
I'm having sensory overload looking at this calendar.
Beerweek.org.
What is that?
It is by the hour, starting on February the 10th, 11th, 12th. So there's activities for your whole day, including Orange County Night at Holy Water here at 3 p.m. on Monday the 13th.
Wow. Yeah, Monday. And there's the, I think the brewery in Silicon Valley is where that guy is.
Willow Glen. That is a photo courtesy of the Mercury News. And this is Kevin Wick. He's the principal owner of Guild House in Willow Glen in San Jose. And apparently it was SF Beer Week, but it's now kind of Bay Area wide.
Yeah, they've expanded it. It was such a, you know. John Watson says every week for me is a beer week. Well, it's a choice. I love it. Now you're getting advice on how to handle your son's situation too in the chat, Kim. So you can see that Lori has a piece of advice about the teacher.
A lot of people think that this some other person also, I think, suggested this wasn't a get sent to the office principal kind of event, but I don't have a problem with over punishing. You know, if getting sent to the office will make him not do that anymore, that's cool. Plus, we'll have a conversation at home. That's what I think is missing a lot now from disciplining kids at school. It's like sometimes something happens at school and they never tell the parent.
Right.
But if you have this kind of partnership where you can, come at it from home and school, both angles are covered, I think you have a better chance of making sure that the kid doesn't do that type of stuff again. And I don't want my child to hurt anyone else. I mean, someone could have gotten kicked, for crying out loud.
Right. Yeah, it seems kind of harmless, to be honest, but then I don't know what his general behavior profile is. And also, as you say, somebody gets kicked, all of a sudden it's not harmless anymore.
Right. He's a sweet kid.
So. Yeah. So, I mean, again, that might be the way that it's explained. It's like, hey, I know it's this thing, but somebody gets kicked, all of a sudden it's not just ha anymore.
Yeah. Bring it up because I thought there was a touch of humor to it, even though I can't approach it that way with him. But yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to commandeer the show with my.
No, that's very, very good.
What?
I mean,
motherhood.
So, Albert, hit me with a stinger so I can get to the next thing.
The Mark Thompson Show.
The 6th officer in Memphis has been relieved of duty. They're investigating Tyre Nichols' death. The video is, stomach turning. Preston Hemphill has been relieved of duty pending the outcome of the administrative investigation, they say. He was hired in 2018. He's a white dude to the extent that it matters. All the 5 accused of murder are black. His body camera captures part of that initial confrontation with Nichols, and in the video, he can be seen using a taser on him. And later on the body cam, a voice that seems to be Hemphill says, "I hope they stomp his ass."
Oh.
After Nichols escaped, there was a disturbing aspect of the that brutality. I mean, in addition to it all being, loathsome, that was associated with almost the choreography of a baton hit and then stand back and another guy kicked and then another. It was as though they didn't want to get hit by their own brutality. I would call it almost an eerie choreography to the brutality. It was just so very ugly. So now a 6th person and a sixth officer has been implicated in what will likely turn into even more. Tyre Nichols' parents invited to Biden's State of the Union, along with the guy who disarmed that Monterey Park gunman down in Southern California.
Yeah.
Both of them, the parents and this guy who disarmed the Monterey Park gunman, are invited to Biden's State of the Union address. That's coming up in a few days, February 7th. Look, that's those of you who are cynical can say, well, I mean, they always fill the crowd with these people. It's symbolic of, it's just symbolism. It's one-dimensional. First of all, as I've said before, symbolism is important. And these can be important inflection moments in a State of the Union address. But I think it's a fair point that if that symbolism isn't backed up by some kind of change, some kind of reform, then it can be just profoundly disappointing. And to that point, I was going to mention this. The cops charged in Tyre Nichols' murder were all hired after they relaxed job requirements for cops in the Memphis area. At least 2 out of 5 Memphis police officers charged with murder in the fatal beatdown of Tyre Nichols joined the force after the department relaxed its hiring requirements. I thought it was all of them, but maybe it's just 2 of them. Tadarius Bean and Demetrius Haley both joined the Memphis Police Department in August of 2020, more than 2 years after the department dramatically loosened the education qualifications that they used to become an officer. Recruits no longer needed an associate's degree or 54 college credit hours to join the force. They could get in with 5 years of work experience. Loosening the required qualifications means the department is ultimately getting, quote, less desirable job candidates, says an adjunct professor at John Jay College of Criminal Justice. I mean, I don't think you need a adjunct professor to tell you that, right? They're desperate. They want police officers, he says. They're going through it. They check off some boxes. They say, okay, they're good enough. Get them on. I am always struck by the variation in qualifications of cops. Some are extremely qualified. Some are smart, try to de-escalate situations. Others are glorified bouncers who take whatever aggression they have and they bring it to the streets. And you know, I try to evaluate these situations with cops in as dispassionate and an objective a manner as I can. But I think those are the ranges of people you end up with on the street. And the neighborhood policing that we talk about, I think Jim Avila talked about it on the show when he was speaking to you about this, Kim.
Mm-hmm.
You don't see a lot of it. You just don't see neighborhood policing, and particularly in big cities. It's just harder and harder. I think what you see, sadly, is you see an arming of the cops with bigger and bigger guns and bigger weapons of war. These tanks that they use in SWAT team exercises. You know, we've covered this before. We covered it on the radio. Remember essentially the overproduction of a lot of these machines. These are really weapons of war. A lot of these machines, the big transport carriers and other stuff that's associated with armaments of one kind or another, or the armored vehicles that are used by SWAT teams, as I say, that overflow spills down to police departments and law enforcement authorities across the country. And they use this stuff and they're cool toys, but they don't really help with the day-to-day policing. And they certainly don't help. So being trained on how to work some, armored personnel carrier or whatever SWAT devices, that doesn't help you in the situations with Tyre Nichols. Now, they disbanded that Scorpion division that was supposed to do what we're talking about. That was supposed to be a reach out to the community division. Instead, it turned out to be a bunch of rogue officers, at least sufficient in number to produce this situation. So I think that's one of the issues. These are departments that don't need all that stuff. You end up, I think, when you talk about law enforcement, oftentimes with the Uvalde, Texas situation. I get it. Everybody's armed. Everybody drives cool vehicles and they work all this stuff that is coming in one way or another to the department, even in a small town. But when the actual shoe pinches and you need a cop to be a cop, what do? Nothing. In that case, please, as I say, I understand there's so many well-intentioned officers who are out there in an unenviable job. I talk about it all the time. Every domestic violence call, even a regular traffic stop, they don't know what they're getting. I'm so sympathetic. But when you see what happened in Uvalde, that's a different kind of brutality, if you will. It's a dereliction of duty. It's an undermining of the community when you show up to the scene and do nothing for over an hour. And it ends up with the slaughter of these kids. So all I'm saying is, I don't think there's a one-size-fits-all answer to so many of these problems. But some of what I've just even skimmed across the surface on does need to be addressed. So this all happens at a time when it's true, not only in Memphis, everywhere, it's tough to hire cops. So you want to raise the requirements for what is acceptable with cops in terms of making the bar higher such that you get a better quality person as police officer. The ranks of the police officers might drop even further. So your thoughts are welcome. You can join us in the chat. You can also, I do think the de-escalation training, I don't know if you posted it, Kim, because I can't look at the screen and at the same time. But one of the magical powers of a well-trained police officer is to de-escalate a situation.
Agree.
And so when I think about a good cop, I think about a cop that's going to de-escalate. And, you know, in Los Angeles, there's almost a culture and cult of following these high-speed chases.
Mhm.
And it's somebody who is wanted for jacking a car, no license plates. You know, it's jacking a car is a bigger deal, but yeah, routine traffic stop that then the guy takes off on. And I say guy generically, it's men and women seem to be running from the cops with, you know, in equal numbers. But I mention it because you put a lot of risk into that bag of catching that bad guy. And I don't know that those decisions are always so smart. They've been smarter about the way they do it now. They used to like be all over them, and you'd find them so fleeing whatever cop car was behind them that they would run into innocent pedestrians, run into innocent bystanders, hit other cars, and you're doing more damage and mayhem as a result of trying to catch someone than ever the stop deserved. So even in something like that, there has to be smart policing involved. And as I say, now they have gotten smarter about it. They lay back, they'll follow with a helicopter, whatever it might be. But we have to decide if it's worth it. I mean, this kid that you killed, was it worth it? I mean, leave aside the fact that you killed him. Was it worth chasing him down, beating him up, tasing him, even once? I mean, what did he do? So I'd love some smart policing. These guys are thugs, the guys who killed this kid. So that's another level of lawlessness. But I'm talking about the other members of the police force. There has to be some proportion about law enforcement and crime. Law enforcement and lawlessness. What was the lawlessness? Then what should be the level of enforcement? So we have this problem in San Francisco, you know, with the smash and grabs. I mean, even as I say, well, smash and grabs, how bad is it? It's bad. They go up and down the street and they break windows and steal stuff with utter impunity. Now, that's a different problem, okay? Law enforcement and the policing issues are so complex. And so when I see something like the Tyre Nichols situation, though, and others like it, I see, you know what? That's not as complex. It's really not. It's brutality, straight up. So, I mean, everybody can agree on that, right? But I'm saying within the gray areas still, we need those who de-escalate, not who are about kicking ass. So, here in, is that Stanislaus County? Running from the cops happens all the time. They break contact regularly to avoid them driving through cities. Yeah, I'm sure that's true. Symptoms of the erosion of respect for authority. Yeah, I think there is that too. The police are not supposed to kill an innocent kid when he's simply going home after watching a sunset. Yeah. Impunity is a ding word. Tom always brings us back to the ding. Tom is sort of the unofficial, referee of ding words. If we had a referee chair, you know how in tennis, the referee's in that chair? Like, I think Tom would sit in that chair with the dinger. That's the way I see it. But anyway, Albert, give me a stinger, please.
The Mark Thompson Show.
So here's what we're going to do. Kim McAllister standing by with news.
Yep.
On the other side of the news, I'll give you a word about Steve Moskowitz. And we get into the last, it'll be about 22 minutes of show. It's our big kick. Now, one of the things I wanted to get to is associated with the movies. So I will leave you on a happy note, but still much to come. Smash the like button like a boss, damn it.
Smashed it with your iron rod.
Thank you. And if you find it in your heart for a super sticker, super chat, appreciate all the ways you support us. That is that. Kim's News as we continue. Mark Thompson Show.
I'm Kim McAllister on the Mark Thompson Show, and this report sponsored by tax attorney Steve Moskowitz at 888 Tax Deal. Sadly, as Mark was just mentioning, this is Tyre Nichols, the man killed by police in Memphis, Tennessee. And as Mark was mentioning, a sixth officer is now under investigation for his alleged role in the events leading up to Tyre Nichols' death in Memphis. Preston Hemphill's attorney says he wasn't present at the second scene where Nichols was beaten by 5 other officers. He's been relieved of duty from the Memphis Police Department, but it's unclear if he faces any other possible charges. The Manhattan District Attorney's Office in New York City appears to be nearing a decision about whether or not to go ahead and charge former President Trump over hush money paid to Stormy Daniels. The New York Times reports witnesses are getting ready to give testimony to a grand jury. The case is focused on the former president's role in the payments to the porn star during his 2016 campaign. We have more details due out today about a shooting that left 6 people dead in California. Many of the victims were related, including a teenage mother and her 10-month-old baby. This shooting happened in Goshen, which is southeast of Fresno, earlier this month. Again, police due to release more information on that case today. A horrible accident that happened in the recent past on Devil's Slide in the Pacifica area. You can see this Tesla went over a cliff. It landed on its wheels, and that is why the people inside survived. But now we understand that the Southern California man who is accused of driving his family over this cliff is set to be arraigned today. Police say this Pasadena doctor tried to kill his wife and 2 children 4 weeks ago by plunging 250 feet off a cliff near Devil's Slide. Everyone survived. The father is now out of the hospital and behind bars. Prosecutors are deciding whether to file criminal charges. Investigators also looking at the 41-year-old's Tesla to rule out any mechanical problems as well. And students are back in the classroom in Virginia, where a 6-year-old shot a teacher. Rich Neck Elementary School in Newport News has implemented new safety measures like metal detector systems. Teacher Abigail Zwerner's attorney said previously several instructors went to the school administration earlier with concerns about the student having a weapon, but weren't taken seriously. In other news in this story today, we understand the principal is now no longer in her job. Prince Andrew accuser Virginia Giuffre will likely speak out about allegations in this case. She says, attorney Lisa Bloom, who represents Jeffrey Epstein's accusers, telling a British outlet she doesn't expect Giuffre to stay silent once her gag order expires in mid-February. So we may be hearing more about this case. Actor Dave Bautista says that filmmaker James Gunn is planning on a full reboot of the DC comic universe. Yes, this is speaking with Insider. Bautista says he met with Gunn to speak about playing the infamous Batman villain Bane in an upcoming film, but the direction the filmmaker wants is to start fresh with young actors. An announcement regarding the future of the DC universe expected to come as early as tomorrow.
That's a great question and conversation from Michael Snyder, who's a massive, comic book and movie guy. So we should ask him, the Culture Blaster, when he's in on Friday. Remind me about the reboot of it's the DC universe being rebooted, right?
Right. With all younger, fresh start, young actors, nobody the same. Mm-hmm. Okay, so lastly, Super Bowl 57 will be the first time in history that two black starting quarterbacks will face off against each other.
Oh,
Patrick
yeah, that's probably right.
Yeah, Patrick Mahomes of Kansas City Chiefs and Jalen Hurts of the Philadelphia Eagles will go to battle in Arizona February 12th. It will be Mahomes' third time playing in the Super Bowl, Hurts making his first appearance. The Eagles, yes, of course, smacked the San Francisco 49ers in the NFC Championship game, while the Chiefs nailed a game-winning field goal to get by the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, Super Bowl 57 takes place on February 12th in Glendale, Arizona.
It's also the first Super Bowl that has two brothers playing against each other, Travis Kelce and Jason Kelce. Jason Kelce plays for the Eagles, and Travis Kelce plays for the Chiefs. And they'll be both facing off against each other, almost like the Harbaugh brothers at another Super Bowl we fell short in.
I have a question for sports fans on the black quarterback thing. No Googling. Who was the first, and everybody watching is old enough to know this, who was the first black quarterback to appear in a Super Bowl, to start in a Super Bowl? And I'm taking
was he
the
playing
answer.
for a Washington team?
Oh, Albert, the commissioner. There's a reason that we call him the commissioner.
Did he get it right?
Well, he's close. Yeah.
I don't want to give too many hints. Also, I want to.
But that's a very, it's a very good hint.
All right, let me do the spot. Then you guys can get the answer. This report sponsored by tax attorney Steve Moskowitz. For more than 30 years, Steve has put his tax knowledge to work for individuals and for businesses. If you need help with your taxes, it's Steve Moskowitz at 888-TAX-DEAL. You can see at the bottom of your screen, MoskowitzLLP.com. I'm Kim McAllister on The Mark Thompson Show.
Feel it in your soul. The Mark Thompson Show.
Many guesses in the chat. I will go through them with you. The chat is saying, first of all, let's get the important stuff. Cheapest gas, $3.69 at World Gas in Concord. Okay, there you go. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Randy, I'm going to get to you. I think you were the first one to go. Warren Moon is a good guess, RJ. Not correct. McNabb, good guess. Not correct, Edward. And then people seem to get it. But the first one into the chat with the right answer was Randy. Washington is who they played for. Doug Williams is his name. That's right. Doug Williams was the first black quarterback to start in a Super Bowl, and he was terrific. I think he went on to coach at Grambling. But there were others who got it as well. Jim got it, Ron got it, and Jenny got it.
Awesome.
Doug something. Doug something or other played for the Redskins of Washington. That's right. They were called the Redskins back then.
I'll accept that.
Yeah. Doug Williams, Tampa Bay. No, I don't think I think he played for the, at that time they were called, the Washington football team was called. Anyway, very good guesses, everyone. And I would have applauded the first correct guess. Was there a reason, Albert, that you didn't want to applaud the correct guess? Maybe you have a good reason. This is the other thing now with me on remote. I have no control over any. Usually Albert and I together influence the sounds you hear, the drops we play, whatever. Now I had to, come to Washington. Albert's in control of everything. And to be fair to him, it's a much more limited palette. I tried to leave him what I could, but it was, sort of everything was done quickly in the dark of night sort of thing. So anyway, all right, we continue. I want to mention one thing, and that is first, I want to acknowledge Steve Moskowitz, who for over 30 years has been helping Bay Area tax filers and business people. And I might add, not just Bay Area, but California and across the nation. He does it in ways that are all easy to understand and turnkey. In other words, you can drop your stuff with Steve and he'll do the rest. This is a guy who started as a cab driver, went on to get a degree in accounting, then I went on to get a law degree in specializing in tax law. So you really couldn't build the more perfect beast than Steve Moskowitz. 888-TAX-DEAL. He can help you set up a business. It may be a side hustle for you. Let him help you protect your money. 888-TAX-DEAL, 888-TAXDEAL. You can also reach him online, MoskowitzLLP.com, MoskowItz, MoskowitzLLP.com. Now,
The Mark Thompson Show.
Thank you, Albert. Thank you. Avatar, 7th weekend. It's the top movie in the country. Yep. Avatar 2.
What?
The Way of Water.
Have you seen it?
I have not. Have you seen it?
I have not. Apparently, it's really long.
What?
Smashed it with your iron rod.
The best movie of the new year, says the New York Times. It's really long, says Kim McAllister. It was a quiet weekend overall, they say. But Avatar, The Way of Water claimed the #1 spot with an additional $15.1 million, $15.7 million, actually, if you're just adjusting your scorecard. I kind of mentioned this because something else caught my eye besides the fact that Avatar did so well. And that is that this, first of all, I'll just mention the other ones that are in the top 5. I'll mention them when I get to it. Oh, Lord. Oh, my God. Top
What
5, blah, blah. Second place went to Puss in Boots, The Last Wish.
Oh, that's supposed to be really good for a kids
It is.
movie.
Michael Snyder liked
yeah.
it. Yeah. 10.6
did.
million. And then it's done very well worldwide. Those animated things usually do because you can dub them easily and the stories are usually pretty short. Third place went to A Man Called Otto.
I did see that in the theater this weekend.
What did you think?
I liked it very much, but it was very, very sad.
Oh.
So see, I went with my mom. I tend to like a movie that kind of carries me away, and either it's a thriller, it's a political thriller, it's some type of like a Die Hard situation, or it's a romance. It carries me away where I'm engrossed in a story. And while I was engrossed in the story, it didn't lift me up. It lifted me, put me down. I mean, not always. I mean, it's about how we kind of create our own family, how we can be there for each other in ways, even if we're not blood relatives, and how just on a human level, we can be there for people that we know are going through a tough time. And I love the message, but it was definitely a Debbie Downer movie for me.
What?
It's true though. Sometimes you just want to go. So I'm here at my parents' house, and this
Thompson
phone
house.
rings. Now my mom.
This is the Mark Thompson Show. Kim
has
speaking.
been scammed a million times. So we are here. We don't answer the phone here, okay?
No.
Because my poor mother has been scammed, and it's just awful what they've done to her.
Does anyone answer the phone anymore? Do you pick it up without knowing who's calling?
Yeah, well, I only have no, of course not. Try not to, but they're so it stopped. But I just want to explain kind of why we don't even have it hooked up to. I don't think to. They literally have a machine. Remember the old machines from the 90s? Yeah, my parents still have. They actually many things from the 90s here. It's a walk through time when you come into this house. But
I'm surprised
they've made it work,
an old
man.
phone on the wall with the cord dangling down.
Yeah, and it used to get all tangled, and then you try to untangle it by spinning it and all that.
Yeah.
It's a weird thing just because of talking about the house and everything. And this is the house I grew up in, and when your parents get old in the same house where you grew up, and you come back and see them, and the house has changed a little bit, and they've slowed down, and you don't notice your own changes, but somehow there's an illusion, right? And the illusion is that you're still young and they're still young. And that's kind of one of the toughest things I'm dealing with right now, is that this is really a shock to the system a little bit, what's happening with my dad, because intellectually I understand that he's older, and I understand that my mom and dad are older, but emotionally something happens. You delude yourself. Not intentionally, not willfully, but subtly. As I'm saying, it's happening unconsciously. House is still the same. Mom and dad are still here. We still eat dinner. So we still talk about politics and talk about all this stuff. They've not been sick. there's a suddenness to this all that reminds me, in a way, that was all you were so lucky, you know, and so that's so as the phone rings and as these aspects of their life remain constant, the reality is other things are changing. So it's particularly difficult. But I was just trying to think through the emotional beats, because it's been very emotional for me and really intense. And I think one of the things that I sorted out was that, you know, coming back here and everything seeming so normal, there was almost a stagecraft to it, that it's not really as normal as it seems. And you're going to have to face the grim realities eventually. And that's sort of what we're dealing with now. So anyway, that's yeah.
I'm sorry that's happening.
But if you want an answering machine from the 90s, I'd like to get rid of this one. So there's that. You know.
I will say though, I have regrets in my life because my grandfather was sick and I had just gotten my first job in radio, and I didn't think I could leave without losing that job. And I didn't spend the time with him that I wish I would have toward the end of his life, because he was a big feature in my life. And I still miss him and love him and regret that I wasn't there at for those moments. And so where you are right now is exactly where you need to be. And I feel like you will never regret not spending this time with your parents, being here for them and for you. So, and we are very lucky that we can do this remotely.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think you're absolutely right. And that's why I may stay on here. You know, I plan to come back tomorrow, but I might very well stay on. I just really can't bring myself to leave. You know, that's for just the reasons you said. By the way, you know this. I'm wearing this hat. I don't know why. I just grabbed it on the way out.
What's it? Tower? Something Tower?
Devil's Tower, Wyoming.
Oh, okay.
Now, does everybody know where Devil's Tower, Wyoming is? It's one of the coolest things in the world. Okay. Devil's Tower, Wyoming is where they shot and it became the centerpiece of this film, a very important sequence and series of sequences in this very successful film by an Academy Award nominated Academy Award nominated director. Does anybody know what the movie Devil's Tower in Wyoming? There it is. Now you'll all get it.
Yeah, when you see it, you kind of know right away.
Yeah, Close Encounters. No, Close Encounters, exactly right.
Yeah.
Close Encounters of the Third Kind. So here's another piece of trivia from the Mark Thompson Show world, and those who've watched for a bit. In fact, even if you just watched in the last couple of weeks, you know, a friend of the show is the guy who wrote Jaws, the movie, and wrote The Jerk, the movie The Jerk with Steve Martin. And he wrote the Crosby biographies, Carl Gottlieb, right? So you heard him in conversations here. You heard him talk about David Crosby with his reflections and all of that. So he knew Steven Spielberg because obviously he wrote Jaws, the movie. Okay, so he's with Steven Spielberg every day and they were pals. So when Steven Spielberg was shooting and developing the film Close Encounters of the Third Kind, he was looking for that place that they were all drawn. They needed a place, somewhere, something where all these people who've been exposed to these alien visitors, where all of them wanted to return. And Carl suggested, Stephen, there's this place, and it's in Wyoming, and it's called Devil's Tower. And it's this weird geological formation. And you ought to take a look at it. It might be just the kind of place that would sort of half landing pad, half just weird geological formation that could be the centerpiece for your movie, Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Spielberg went there, his location people went there, and they made that the centerpiece of the film.
Oh, cool.
And so Carl came up with that. Now, the coda to that story is that I and a handful of others, I want to say 3 other guys, we regularly take tours of the national parks, okay? And we took Carl with us. Carl is like a centerpiece of it. And we took Carl with us to this place. That's where I got the hat, Devil's Tower, the Devil's Tower, Wyoming. So I'm walking around Devil's Tower, that formation that Kim showed, with the guy who suggested that it be in the movie Close Encounters, which is really kind of a cool thing.
But cool.
When we were stopped and Carl was driving for speeding, he was going 90 in a 60 or 70 mile. We're all quiet. The cop is talking to him. He doesn't mention, and nor do any of us mention, that he was the guy. I mean, the cop is stopped us right outside of it. I said, Carl, why didn't you say, hey, by the way, I just want to come and see this monument. It's, I was the one who suggested it was in Close Encounters of the Third Kind. I mean, it's worth a shot. He's not going to arrest you for saying it. At least take a shot, Carl.
Wild idea, but it just might work.
What I wonder is if Carl was mentioned in the credits or got anything for the suggestion. Was there ever any like notation? This was Carl's idea,
I don't believe so. No, there was not. Yeah. Anyway, I just can't believe that he didn't at least, or that one of us should have. I think we were all a little worried. You know what I mean?
Right.
But that's the reason we didn't. Nikki is back today, everybody. Talking the Currys being NIMBYs.
Oh.
Yeah. Nikki defending the Trent Williams slam. It's a little bit of what Albert was explaining also in the first hour. Rich Walkoff on the Niners loss. Policing in the U.S. and should we watch body cam videos at all? These are good questions and it's a good show. And Nikki is back.
By the way, I'll say Walkoff said last week the Niners would lose.
Well, they were everybody who looked at it objectively, the Niners were overmatched and they were underdogs in the game. So Las Vegas was saying, I mean, with all due respect to Rich Walkoff, no kidding. Everybody was saying that they were going to lose. But here's the sad part and the part that makes me angry. And I take nothing. Rich is a bro. I love Rich on the radio and love it all the time. I'm just saying that they were the underdogs. I mean, they were, so saying they're going to lose is not picking the upset per se. But to lose that way, to have both quarterbacks go down, to be jobbed by the officials, it was ugly. To be carved up with key injuries, both on offense and on defense, see our first half hour when we discuss it, and you see why we just feel jobbed by the fates. It's not the Eagles' fault. They have a great team. Look, they're favored. They have great weapons, but I thought the Niners were able to contain their weapons, and had we remained intact, I think it would have been a hell of a game. And we were cheated out of a hell of a game. That was it. I was ready to lose. I knew that we were up against a really tough team, but I wasn't ready to lose that way. Maybe that's the way to put it. So that's Carl calling. I got to figure out what to do about the phone tomorrow. But
I think it's kind of fun.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad.
It's like an old school ring, It sounds like a newsroom, a very busy newsroom.
Shout out to Kevin Hobbs, who's a regular
big
viewer,
shout out,
listener, and supporter. Big shout out for the day.
Thank
you, Kevin. You are such a great supporter.
Yeah.
Thank you for your help. Thank you for your support and your viewership and all the ways that you show the love. I thank you. And Andreas, what's with all these presidents? What's with all these presidents taking a homework home? Yeah. So Hillary was smarter than both of them. Yeah. Hard drive. Boy, Hillary looks like absolutely so quaint in relation to everything else going on. Andreas is so right. I even forgot about Hillary Clinton. Man, the media went on a jihad against her. Look at the number of stories. Andreas is right. The number of stories done about her emails and her server versus the number of stories done about Trump demonstrable corruption, conflicts of interest, and questionable business practices. There's just it became the narrative. What about her emails, right? So that's so right, Andreas. And thank you, Andreas. Shout out. Thank you for the support.
Yeah,
Wow.
thank you very much.
So much. Tom N, $40. Mark and team, thanks for doing a great job, especially during this trying time for Mark. I'm sure it's an emotional roller coaster. Boy, that's true. Yeah. Been there, done that. Hang in there, man. A lot of us are thinking about you and your parents. Oh, that's so sweet, Tom.
Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Tom. But that's a generous contribution as well. And I'm not gonna cry. I'm not gonna cry. I say that all the time. It's cry adjacent. I have to say that's a real contribution. Thank you. Chappelle said it. Thank you. You can support the show on a continuing basis. It's themarkthompsonshow.com. What is this? Dwayne Kennedy from City Shapers Inc., San Francisco. Wow. $50.
Thank you.
Really kind.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Dwayne, and all of you. That's a serious contribution. $50, $49.99. That is so generous. Buddy, we're in the same boat. Call when you're back. The topic of old folks is a good one. Also, you can take calls on a burner phone and leave speaker on so Advance can hear. Nikki did it with her daughter by accident.
My bad. I'm sorry.
Andreas, first of all, thank you for the $20 and thank you for that super chat. I would love to, and we're going to integrate different ways to get callers and different people on the air. So let's stay in touch about that. It is a good topic, and I think we all face it. So you're right. It's a real good suggestion, and we'll continue to integrate different ways for you to communicate on it. Harry Magnan, a round of martinis for you and your parents. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Nice.
Harry, thank you. And let me tell you something. My dad has never had a drop of alcohol. And he's not, he's the mellowest guy. Like, he's not like, oh, no alcohol. He's not a, prohibitionist. You know what I mean? He's not right? He just doesn't like it. And I'll tell you a story about my dad and alcohol and the Army, because he was in the Army. It's really hard to turn down alcohol when everybody else is drinking in your platoon. I'll tell you that tomorrow. But thank you for the martinis. All the drinking that my dad doesn't do, I do. So it's a great, the world works out. It balances it.
You're in
balance, and my mom
yeah.
doesn't really drink much either. So pretty incredible. Anyway, you guys are terrific, and I thank you for your support. I can't believe that 2 hours has gone by so quickly.
Wicked fast.
We had the sadness of reflecting on the Niners' loss, and how the fates conspired against the Niners, how the refereeing in the NFL is so bad that supposedly the best officials in 2 of the best games of the season just ruined the games for many of the fans. But we also talked about the policing. We got into some stories about Kim's son. So I think this wasn't I have to say, it wasn't a bad show. And here we are raw with all the emotion and in my mom and dad's house. I will encourage you to stay in for Nikki over the Nikki Maduro show. And here he is.
For the Mark Thompson Show. Bye-bye.
Yes. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for the ways you support us. Until tomorrow. Thanks, Albert. Thanks, Kim. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Courtney. Bye-bye.